안녕하세요. Thank you. Can I leave this here? This is my PowerPoint, so you don't have to look at the screen. You can just look at me. And I want to thank Chosan for bringing me here and arranging this, and all the people who have come to this conference. I don't think I need this. And I want to thank the translator. Jay, where's the translator? In the booth somewhere? Ah, Jay. Thank you. Real human translator, not AI. So I said that even if she doesn't translate my jokes perfectly, as long as she makes the audience laugh, she'll argue for her job not being replaced by robots. I think that's the best argument we can make. I'm waiting for the 5-second delay for the laughter. Well, thank you. It's great to be here. So I want to start with a little story that brings me back 10 years ago. 10 years ago, I'm living in Toronto, where I live now, and working as a writer and a journalist, as I do now. And one morning, I wake up, and I can't move my neck. I'm like this, and the pain is just, shooting up and down my shoulder and up and down my back, and I'm walking around like a zombie or a robot you can love, a love robot. And the pain is really bad. So I go to my doctor, and my doctor says, we got all this medicine and technology, but your problem is that you're sitting at a computer all day and you're hurting your neck and you pulled something and you're just gonna have to give it time. Here's some painkiller pills that'll relax your muscles. And I took the pills and I slept really good, but I woke up the next morning and I'm still feeling like this. So I go talk to my dad, and my dad is one of these people that loves going to doctors, loves going to experts, always looking at the latest, best technology. And he sends me to the specialist, and this specialist has the latest, greatest technology for sports medicine and muscles. And he uses 2 machines on me. One of them uses lasers to penetrate deep into the skin and the muscle tissue and try to soften it up or break it up or work some sort of magic. The other machine uses ultrasonic waves, controlled by a computer to do the same, to relieve the pressure and break it up. And it made no difference whatsoever. Finally, after a couple of days of walking around like this, where my wife was literally laughing at me, I'm walking down the street near where I live in Toronto. And I used to live in a part of the city called Koreatown, which is an area where a lot of people from Korea had moved and set up businesses, and still have some of those businesses. You can get good soon tofu there. You can get okay bibimbap. And there was a place that I'd always walk by, and it said acupuncture, traditional Korean medicine. And I was in so much pain, I just opened the door and walked into this very, very small shop. Little bottles of pills and ginseng roots everywhere. It smelled like a forest. They had the old hula hoops. Anybody's grandmother do the hula hoop for exercise? And this old guy comes out, sort of shuffles out. He has a really bad wig and a comb over, dyed black. And he says, "What's your problem?" And I just stand like that. He goes, "Take your shirt off." I'm like, okay. When an old man tells you to take your shirt off, you take your shirt off. Lie down on the couch, and he gives me acupuncture. Never had acupuncture before. And then he smells like he lit something on fire, and I feel this hot thing on my back, and he had put these hot stones on my back. So it smelled like my back was like galbi, barbecue. Like it actually, yeah, there. See, that got translated well. And finally I get up, and he cracks my back, and he massages me a bit with his hands, and I'm feeling a little bit better. And then he hands me something. It's this piece of wood that's that long and sort of shaped like that. And he says, "Wooden pillow, very important in Korea. Use it every night. Lie on your back, roll on it 200 times. 200 times in the night, 200 times in the morning." And I was like, are you serious? This thing is it's like a rock. So I go home and I lie down and I do it, and it feels a little better. and I do it again the next morning, and it feels a little better. And I do it again the next day, and I feel totally fine. I'm rejuvenated. So why do I tell this story? Well, it's the only good Korean anecdote I had, so that's reason number one. Reason number two is that despite all the advances of medical technology and everything we've done, what worked best for me? A wooden pillow and acupuncture and practices that have probably been practiced here in Korea for dozens, if not many more generations, right? And it speaks to something that I'm going to talk about today, which is called the revenge of analog. What's the revenge of analog? Well, first of all, it's the name of a book I wrote, which the title is something similar in Korean. But more broadly, it is a phenomenon that I have observed over the past decade, really around the same time as I hurt my neck, where the digital technology that we thought would come and sweep away all the analog things in our past didn't entirely do it. And in many cases, many of the analog technologies that we thought were done and dead for have actually been growing again, right? You think about where we are. We've had 30-some years of personal computers, 20 years of the internet, 10 years of smartphones. And we assume that many of the things that digital technology would come to replicate would be gone and dead forever, would be completely replaced, right? That's kind of the idea behind a lot of the basis of the singularity, of Moore's law, the exponential increase of technology, digital technology getting better and better, and making all those things behind it obsolete. And yet what we've seen over the past decade, really since the invention of smartphones, of BlackBerry and various Samsung products and iPhones, is that, yes, there has been tremendous impacts and disruptions in businesses. But in many cases, and in growing numbers of cases, analog goods and analog ideas have actually begun growing again in new and interesting ways. You see it with vinyl records. Vinyl records was the big format in the 1970s and started declining in the 1980s when Sony came out with the CD, the compact disc. And then, of course, we had the advent of MP3s and downloads and streaming. In 2006 was the low year for vinyl records. They were almost dead and done. You could buy records for just a couple hundred won, and turntables were, people would just put them out in the street. In the past decade, vinyl record sales in the United States, as well as in other parts of the world, have grown 14 times. And records now are more popular. There are record shops popping up all over the world, doubling, tripling in numbers in some cities where previously they had been closing. Film photography. Nobody thought that film, the most costly, polluting, difficult sort of way to capture an image, would ever survive the onslaught of digital photography, which is just so much easier and better and cheaper, right? And yet, look at Fujifilm's Instax camera, which is Fujifilm's own version of a Polaroid camera. They released it, it started to go down and decline. They were barely doing any sales. They were selling, 100,000 units a year in Japan in something like 2005. And now Fujifilm's Instax is one of the fastest growing types of cameras everywhere. If you go around Seoul, you're going to see young kids taking film photos. It's actually so profitable for Fujifilm. In many ways, it drives more profit and makes more money for them than a lot of their digital cameras, which are trying to compete with phones. Books and bookstores have been having a comeback recently. We all thought that the Kindle and the Riddy Reader and Kobo and Rakuten would destroy books, and Amazon would wipe out bookstores. And in the United States, the past 3 years, books have been consistently growing. Paper books have been consistently growing in the publishing business in terms of sales. And e-books have actually been declining, and e-reader sales are down. And while many of the big book chains in the United States and in North America have been closing or shrinking over the past couple decades, first from competition from big chains like Barnes & Noble, second from competition of Amazon, now independent bookstores, the small mom-and-pop bookstores and other bookstores are growing and have been growing consistently over the past couple years. Little stores are opening up in cities like New York and San Francisco and Toronto, with one location, then moving to 2 locations and 3 locations, and their sales are growing as well. And there's a number of different examples. So in the age where we're expecting the coming of the singularity and the even more vastly outpaced exponential growth of digital technology, why is this happening? Why are we seeing the parallel growth and resurgence in a small but significant way across countries and cities of analog technology? And I say across cities because, you know, Seoul, the most digital city in the world, which everybody loves to brag about, is also one of the best analog cities in the world. There are so many new bookstores, record stores here, libraries, interesting things happening around physical, tactile culture. So if it's happening here, what does this say about us and the way we're going to live if artificial intelligence keeps growing as we expect it to, as many of the predictions people here make, if the singularity is everything it's cracked up to be? So let's look at the reasons why analog is growing. And I break it down into 2 key reasons. One is not water. That was just me drinking. I'm still a human. I have to hydrate. I like to say it's happening for 2 reasons: the head and the heart. Okay? The head and the heart. The head is all the logical reasons why analog things or analog ways of doing things, processes, are superior or beneficial to the digital equivalent. Let's take something very simple and basic that a lot of us are doing. Writing, right? Taking paper and pen and writing. This is a technology that's been around for thousands of years, originated here in Asia, paper and pen. What is the benefit of that, right? Over the past 40-some years, we've heard predictions about the paperless office, the paperless environment. There should be no paper, that paper shouldn't exist, and once we reach this place of a paperless environment, we'll be so much more efficient and so much better. And yet, you know, there was a technology that was introduced in 1997 that has become one of the most powerful and disruptive and beloved technologies in technology companies around the world, in innovation economies, in ad agencies and creative fields, in places like Facebook and Google in Silicon Valley. And it's not early smartphones, and it's not early AI, and it's not PowerPoint or collaboration software. It's the Moleskine journal, right? Does anyone know what a Moleskine journal is? Who here uses one? Who here uses a journal or a paper journal? Yes. Some of you, don't all put your hands up at once. There's like fingers going on. Nobody will kick you out if you write on a piece of paper. It's okay, I see most of you doing it. Moleskine is a company that started out just selling journals, and they sold them with a story. Oh, this is the journal that Hemingway used, which isn't quite true. But very quickly it became adopted, not by writers and poets and romantic people, but by people at MIT, and people in computer science, and people in companies that were building the most advanced digital technology. And they did it not because they're romantic or they believe in sort of the beauty of paper and the smell of it. They did it because for them it worked the best. It was the most efficient thing to do. Because while the page has a limitation of whatever its size is, right, however many centimeters by many centimeters, it didn't tell you what to do. It didn't restrict in what you can do. It didn't require power. It didn't require you to sync with something else and remember your password or surrender your information. You could take a page, write on it, scrunch it up, rip it, tape things to it, poke holes in it, do whatever you could do. It allowed for the most efficient, free flow of ideas. And many companies in the digital economy have integrated this into it. If you go to a cafe, a coffee shop, of which I described Seoul to my wife yesterday as coffee shop, skincare shop, coffee shop, skincare shop, coffee shop, skincare shop. Bulgogi place. If you go to a coffee shop in Seoul, in San Francisco, in Tokyo, in Toronto, in Buenos Aires, there are going to be people that are building the new companies and the new ideas of what will be the age of the singularity. And they will be sitting there, and in front of them will be a laptop, and next to that laptop will be a phone, and next to that will be a latte, and next to that will be a journal or a notebook, because it is a tool that allows for that flow of information. And this is being integrated into the highest levels of companies in Silicon Valley. A couple years ago in San Francisco, I had the pleasure to sit and have lunch with a gentleman named John Skidgel. And John is a user interface and user experience designer at Google. He is one of the people who designed the way that YouTube looks a couple years ago when they did a redesign, and he's one of the top designers in their San Francisco office. And John is also an artist and an illustrator, and he likes to draw and design. As many people in Silicon Valley, they have lives and hobbies outside of the digital world. They like books as well. They do these things. And John had noticed that the younger designers under him, their work just wasn't as good as it used to be. It was getting worse. The designs they were making were just not so well thought out. And he thought, okay, well, maybe there's a benefit. I use paper. Maybe I can start teaching them to use it in a couple ways. And he set up this course, and it was at first voluntary, and then it became mandatory for all designers and anyone working in any element of design at Google and any of their products, right? Whether you're designing a new sort of inbox or whether you're designing, the little Google Doodles. What was this course? What was this advanced course that he taught? Anyone who came into the class was given 3 things. One was a big pad of paper, blank paper, no lines. The other one was a thin marker, and the other one was a thick marker. Lesson 1, how to draw a straight line. Does anybody want to learn this now? Take your pen, okay? And instead of moving side to side, start from the top and go down. Don't lock your elbow, right? Now, how to draw 2 lines parallel, how to draw dotted lines, and so on and so forth. Until the people at Google, who were being taught by John, could essentially take any idea they had and write it down very quickly and easily and communicate it to someone else on a piece of paper or a whiteboard, maybe. And very often, John would have a young person come up to him and say, I don't understand. What's the point? This is what we have design software for. I can do this much quicker on my thing or tablet. This is stupid. This is antiquated. This is old. And he said, okay, there's 2 good reasons why. The first is, if you have an idea for something and you open up your design software, Adobe Illustrator, whatever it is that you use to design, frameworks for things, you'll start going in and formatting, and there's 2 things. First is, you're limited in what the software allows you to do. The software is going to let you do all sorts of things, but there's other things it can't do. You can't rip the page. You can't crumple it up. You can't squiggle in a certain way that the software doesn't allow. So you're restricted in what you can do. The other is, as soon as you start going in and squiggling at a thing, you're going to say, well, what color do I want? I think I'll do it in a blue. Okay, what shade of blue? You have every single possible shade of blue. And he found that people were wasting their time picking, is it blue 758 indigo or is it cerulean 657? You got bogged down in the details. There were so many options, but too many options that analysis paralysis set in. He said, most importantly, though, let's say you're in the elevator at Google one day. You, young, up-and-coming designer, just moved from Seoul to San Francisco, really making it in the world. And in walks Sergey Brin, right, the founder of the company. You have this brilliant idea for how Gmail should look, and you have 1 minute of going up in the elevator. Are you going to pull out your tablet, open up the program, format a thing, start drawing it and show it to him? Or are you going to pick out the pen and draw it on your hand, and then he'll give you, half the shares of the company, and you'll live a life of pure luxury, right? It allows, paper and pen allows writing for that instant communication of ideas that, in many ways, is hindered by digital technology just because of its nature. But it's not just writing. It's also reading. I think many people believe that, information read on a screen is the same as information read on a page. And in many ways, it is. The letters are the same. If you wrote Global Leaders Forum on a piece of paper, you would read the same thing. But numerous studies have shown, time and again, that comprehension, information retention, and memory is better for people of all ages when they're reading information on a printed page. And there's a number of theories why this is. We have evolved over, several thousand years of reading things on page. It's what we're accustomed to. We still do it as children, right? But the other thing is, there's no distractions. You read something on a piece of paper, there's no text message that's going to pop up. Nobody's going to bring an ad in front of your face. Even if there's an ad in, Chosun Daily newspaper, it's not like flashing at you or blocking the screen. It's there, tastefully advertising the new Genesis or whatever Hyundai's trying to sell us. And it is what's sort of known as a walled garden of paper, right? Those distractions are not coming in. And again, it's not just romantic people who love the smell of a book and love the look of a book that are turning to paper. It is people who are focused heavily on productivity and the benefits of it, right? It is schools that are realizing with that research that, yes, they can give every child in a school an ebook, but it doesn't make them a better reader. In many cases, it's counterintuitive, and so schools are realizing the value of books and textbooks and pages, especially for the youngest children, right? But it's even those at the heights of the most digital companies in terms of reading, right? Amazon, the company that, created not so much the ebook, but the modern market for ebooks with the Kindle and the Kindle store. And it's sort of done more to promote reading digitally than anyone else has. And yet, if you are an executive or even a mid-level employee at Amazon in their offices here or in Seattle or San Francisco, you don't use PowerPoint presentations when you're meeting with your colleagues and presenting them an idea. This comes from Bezos on down. The way it works is if you're presenting something at a meeting with other executives or other managers, you are required to write and print out a 5-page memo, which is not bullet points or pictures of PowerPoint stuff or photographs of stock art. It is a 5-page narrative story, like a newspaper story, that talks about what you plan to do and what you want to talk about and why. And everybody who goes into that meeting puts their phones away, closes their laptop screens, and sits there for 30 minutes quietly reading like good little school children, with Jeff Bezos kind of standing over them, hitting them if they look up at their phones. And only after everybody's read everything, away from distractions, getting all the information, do they then start talking. And do they then have the discussions to lead to decisions? Because, as Bezos says, you get the clearest idea then. Everybody knows what they're talking about, they're on page, and their concentration is focused, right? The other reason, so that's, reading and writing and reading. Another reason why analog sort of has that benefit and analog works, the head of analog, is financial, is money. Oh yes, we all dream of starting the next Google and literally just living a life of trillions of dollars of wealth. And there are many young startups out there that do that, right? But the reality is that there is money to be made in analog. The analog economy, maybe it's not Bitcoin money, but it's cash, it's dollars, it's won. And the business model is one of not hockey stick growth and then getting acquired or going public, but selling things for more money than you got them, right? Which is why I was talking to some folks from Riddy Books, the ebook company, yesterday. And they were saying, well, I don't understand. How do these bookstores make money? And I said, well, they buy books from the publisher, and then they sell them for more money than it costs to buy them. And if they can sell enough books, more than it costs to run their stores and buy the money, that's how they make money. I said, how does Riddy Books make money? They're like, oh, we have a platform and ways and growth. I said, let me ask you a question. Is the company profitable? And they're like, we're working our way toward profit. Thank you. Okay, great. Yeah, good to know, right? So there's value in analog. But there's value in selling, not just selling analog things, but the utility of analog things as well. There's a wonderful disruptive business technology that a company in London called Moo discovered. They set out to create in 2005 a social network. And to get on the social network, you had to have a card. So they would send out these cards. And nobody joined their social network, and the company was losing money. But then a lot of people said to them, hey, I really like those cards. Can I get them as a business card? Right? And the company started making business cards and selling them online, thinking, who the hell would want business cards in this day and age? You could beam your contacts from one person to another. We have LinkedIn. Nobody needs these things. And the company is now doing, $200 million a year in sales of business cards. Who here has business cards and uses business cards? No? These 3 people use business cards? Just you 3? You guys should exchange cards. Who here doesn't use business cards or doesn't have them? No one. Okay. Right? There is a utility to it, not because the information on there is anything that I can't find online or can't email to you. It's that you remember when you get a business card. There is a ritual. There is a social interaction to that. And that's valuable. That makes sense. That, in many ways, can make money. Another area is something like the bookstore, right? Brick and mortar retail. We're told, well, retail is done and dying. E-commerce is going to gobble it up, and all the stores, every store that's selling everything that isn't selling it online is going to close. Even though, 85% of stores in Korea, 90% in the US, or commerce is done in stores, there's this belief that, retail's days are done and dying. There's a company that didn't believe this, that was an early e-commerce retailer and went into the brick and mortar business early, and it actually was transformative. It's Apple. And when I interviewed the person who created the Apple Store on behalf of Steve Jobs, and Steve Jobs said, go out and build me stores. He said the big thing that turned Apple from kind of the small, cute computer company for geeks into what it is today was, yes, not just the iPhone, but the iPod, but it was also the stores, having that physical place to go in and buy it, right? Which is why when there is a new iPhone or a new computer that comes out, there are lineups outside that store like it's the release of a latest Harry Potter novel at a bookstore. And why is that? It's not like the Apple Store sells anything that you can't buy anywhere else. They sell the same Apple products as everyone. They actually sell them for more money at the Apple Store. It's because there's that sense of going there, of being part of something. That if you walk into an Apple Store, they're going to sell you something that you probably didn't even want to buy, which is the same as walking into any store, as walking into Uniqlo, as walking into, a bookstore, right? You're going to get more of that. You can make more money in retail. You can sell more in a physical store, which is why, a place like Myeongdong, as crazy as it is, they're selling a lot of stuff. They're selling a lot of Hello Kitty socks or whatever the hell they sell in Myeongdong. So those are the logical reasons why analog is beneficial. Analog works even for technology companies, right? And why companies like Amazon, the kings of e-commerce, are now opening bookstores and now buying grocery stores. In the United States, they're going to be probably opening stores here in Korea too, because there's a benefit to that and they can make money doing it. But to me, the head is one part, right? We're talking about logic and AI, and this is logic and analog. But to me, the heart matters just as much, if not more. Because fundamentally, we are not logical, pure creatures. We are not computers. We do not look at things from the perspective of AI and machine learning. We are emotional, irrational beings. And that is the crazy thing about us and what makes us very difficult to deal with. But that's the wonderful thing as well. And human beings, as long as we are that, are going to respond to things that we can see and feel and touch in a real way. So analog gives us pleasure. It gives us the pleasure of things, right? Yesterday, I was at a record store in Hongdae called Bimbap. I think it's called Bimbap. Gimbap, that was it, Gimbap. A small record store, maybe like a fourth the size of this stage, packed in. And I was in there, I was just in there to check it out, and of course I bought a record. It was like 35,000 won for some Korean hip-hop record I couldn't even listen to because the guy wouldn't unseal it. But it was the pleasure of being in that place and the pleasure of having it. I can get all the music I want on my phone, and I have Spotify. I listen to it all the time when I'm driving, when I'm walking my kids to school, or on the way back, not while they're with me. But I love to buy records, and I love to have them in my house. Why? Because I like to have them there. I like the feel of them. I like the look of them. I like to have friends come over and play them something. I like the process that it makes me go through, to look through a record, to do it. And having the things is what gives me that joy, right? We are commercial creatures in this capitalist society. You know, we define ourselves by the things we have, by the things we want. Sometimes that's bad if it's too much, but a lot of the time that's what we do and what we want. And so when people say, well, you can get everything on your phone, okay, I can get everything on my phone, but I don't want everything on my phone. I still want to be able to go out and get stuff. I don't want to live in a house that only has a Samsung TV on the wall and nothing else. I want art. I want beauty. I want books on a bookshelf. I want records on the turntable. I want candles, even though I can get an, Bluetooth-controlled LED light. I want that warmth of it. And I want the pleasure not just of things, but of places. I want to be able to go to bookstores. I want to be able to go to record stores. Because unlike shopping online, which is all about getting something for the lowest possible price at the fastest, it's what we do to enjoy ourselves. Who here likes to spend their time walking around stores, especially when they're in another city? This guy. Either the translation's really slow or this guy's the only one that gets the joke. He likes to shop. Shopping is what we do. Most of us, when we go on vacation, we spend one full day of a 7-day vacation walking around and shopping. I walked around yesterday just going in and out of stores all day, not so much because I wanted to buy stuff, but because I wanted to interact with people, to see how does Korea sell coffee? What is even for sale in these stores with the giant stuffed animals in them? I have to find out. I need to know. And that physical world is not just about bringing us into contact with things. It's about bringing us in contact with people, the pleasures of human beings, the pleasures of real social interactions, IRL, not social networks, human beings, one-on-one. I had the pleasure yesterday of visiting the Songche, hold on, I want to get this right, so I'm actually going to read it. Samcheong Park, Forest Park Library. Does anyone know what that is? Does anyone know where Samcheong Park is? This gentleman knows. 3 years ago, the Seoul Public Library opened up in an old grocery store in a park in a forest in Samcheong, a little library. It has a little coffee shop that sells tea and cakes in the middle, and it has windows all around it with views of the trees in the forest, tables outside, windows that open to the outside. And it's a library. It has books. And they say that on the weekends and in the summer and when the weather's nice, it's full of people, younger people, sitting there reading books, having coffee, and talking with each other. Not because they need the information that's in that book, but because they crave being in places with other people. You know, one of the interesting phenomenons of analog's return over the past decade has been the growth, the tremendous growth in board games, paper, cardboard games, plastic games, Settlers of Catan, Dungeons and Dragons, Magic cards, other amazing games that have been going incredibly well. Yes, you can play all sorts of amazing, incredible video games from your house, from your phone with anyone around the world. I mean, South Korea is it's like the national sport, right? Playing video games and people. But what do you not get when you're doing that? You don't get the laughter and the attraction of sitting across the table from a friend or someone you just met on a first date, or with your family member, or with your children. The game, when you play a board game, is just the excuse for socialization. And that socialization is the oxygen that we need to live. We require it, right? Which is why, yeah, you could have sat at home and live streamed this thing from your living room or your office, but you came here, you paid the money to sit in this conference room in this hotel on a beautiful day, not to listen to me and these other people speak, but to be with each other, to meet other people, to make new friends, to make friends with old friends, maybe to make a connection that will change your life. Maybe there'll be a romance here. Who knows, right? And that, I think, is the fundamental thing when we talk about analog and why it's coming back and the future of the singularity, right? Because people say, look, what does it matter? We're living in a digital age. Technology is only getting better. And of course, once we reach that period of transcendence, then we will reach this age of the singularity. And when technology is so great, it will solve these problems, these pain points that we have. We will cure disease. We will cure poverty. We will have no more tyranny. Everything will be this totally open and wonderful democracy. We will create whatever we want. We will be able to make love to robots, and we will live forever, right? And that's the vision of what the sort of perfect world is. But here's the reality. There is no digital world. There's only the analog one. We are not computers. We use computers, but at the end of the day, we are flesh and blood, biological creatures, walking upon a rock that is spinning through outer space. And that is who we are, and that is who we're going to be. And as long as that is the case, then the head and the heart of analog will always respond to us the best. It will always be what touches us the best. It will always have a place in our heart. And as digital technology will continue to grow and do incredible things, I have no doubt about it, our need for analog, our need for the real things that keep us grounded in this world, that give us pleasure, that help us work better, that give us that sense of belonging and the sense of comfort with each other are going to be there. So here's my prediction for the future, singularity or not. Computers will be great. Cars will probably drive themselves. We'll do all sorts of wonderful things with ones and zeros. But we're still going to look at a sunrise and smile. We're still going to want to eat galbi and listen to the sizzle of that fat as it hits real charcoal, even though we can probably drink some sort of Soylent substitute bullshit drink to get our nutrition. We can listen to music created by computers, but going to a concert or a symphony and hearing someone play piano is going to bring a tear to our eye. And as much as it'll be fun to love robots and have them give us emotion and make love to them, as troublesome as human relationships are and love with another human, that's still going to be the best. That's still going to make us feel real and loved and human. And 100 years from now, 500 years from now, when my descendants throw their neck out, I hope they're going to be able to take that wooden pillow that I passed down from them and help them make them better. Thank you so much.